Patricia Henderson mocked Judge Judy's courtroom rules as a joke. But what happened 47 seconds later left her sobbing on national television and destroyed everything she'd spent 6 years building. But here's what nobody knew that day. What the cameras didn't show until the final minutes of the trial. Patricia wasn't just an HOA president on a power trip. She was hiding something that would turn this simple door color dispute into the most viral court case of the year. Exposing a scheme so calculated that even Judge Judy herself would call it the most arrogant abuse of power she'd seen in 4 decades on the bench. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Marcus Chen sat rigid in the plaintiff's gallery of Judge Judy's Studio 5 courtroom, his dress shirt collar damp with nervous sweat despite the aggressive air conditioning that kept the studio at a crisp 68 degrees. At 28 years old, he'd faced difficult moments before. Grueling software engineering interviews, his grandmother's final days in hospice, the overwhelming process of buying his first home, but nothing compared to the knot of dread and desperate hope twisting in his gut right now. The folder on his lap contained everything. 6 months of meticulous documentation, printed emails, time-stamped photographs, bank statements, text message screenshots, even a notarized letter from his grandmother's estate lawyer. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the folder for the 5th time, remembering his grandmother's voice from countless afternoons watching this very show together. Marcus, baby, Judge Judy destroys liars, but she protects people who bring the truth. Always bring your receipts. He had the receipts. God, he hoped he had enough receipts. Across the aisle sat Patricia Henderson, and if Marcus radiated anxiety, she exuded the supreme confidence of someone who'd never truly been told no in her entire adult life. At 56, Patricia carried herself like royalty slumming in peasant court. Her designer suit, the real Chanel, not the department store knockoff she'd claim on her taxes, catching the studio lights as she casually scrolled through her phone despite the 3 visible "No phones in courtroom" signs posted around the studio. Her jewelry alone, diamond tennis bracelet, Cartier watch, pearl earrings, probably cost more than Marcus made in 2 months. She'd barely glanced at him when she arrived, offering only a dismissive smirk and a whispered comment to her lawyer that the boom mic definitely caught. "This'll be over in 10 minutes. Show pays the judgment. Easiest money we'll make all year." Her lawyer, a young associate from a strip mall firm who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth, had simply nodded weakly and pretended to review his notes. Marcus knew the truth. Patricia had sued 12 homeowners from Meadowbrook Estates in the past 3 years alone. 12 families in a community of just 47 homes. She'd perfected her system, find a technicality, issue a violation, threaten a lawsuit, and watch people pay settlements rather than miss work for court dates they couldn't afford to attend. 8 families had paid her between $1,500 and $5,000 each. 4 families had simply sold their homes and moved away, unable to endure her harassment. Patricia Henderson had never actually gone to trial. She'd never had to. Until today. Until Marcus, a kid who'd grown up watching Judge Judy with his grandmother, who'd learned that documentation beats intimidation, who'd promised a dying woman he'd paint something navy blue in the home he bought to honor her memory. The bailiff's voice cut through the studio chatter. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Judith Scheindlin presiding. Patricia didn't stand immediately. She finished her text message first, hit send, then rose with an exaggerated sigh. That single gesture, that tiny display of disrespect for the court, would be the first crack in the dam that was about to break and drown her completely. Judge Judy entered with the brisk, no-nonsense energy of someone who'd spent 40 years separating truth from bullshit, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken as she settled into her chair, flipping open the case file with those sharp, calculating eyes that had terrified liars across 2 decades of television. She scanned the documents for maybe 20 seconds, total silence except for the soft rustle of paper, before her gaze lifted and locked directly onto Patricia Henderson, with the precision of a laser-guided missile acquiring its target. "Ms. Henderson," Judge Judy began, her tone deceptively calm, almost conversational. "You're suing Mr. Chen for $5,000 because his front door is navy blue. That's the basis of your case. A paint color." Patricia sat up straighter, smoothing her suit jacket with the kind of theatrical confidence that suggested she'd rehearsed this moment in her bathroom mirror. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this isn't simply about paint color. It's about maintaining community standards and property values in Meadowbrook Estates. As HOA president for 6 years, I have a fiduciary responsibility to enforce our covenants and ensure that every homeowner adheres to the aesthetic guidelines that protect our investments. Mr. Chen's flagrant disregard for established norms creates a precedent that could lead to—" "I didn't ask for a campaign speech," Judge Judy interrupted. her voice dropping 10 degrees in temperature. What does your HOA covenant say specifically about door colors? Patricia's lawyer started to rise, manila folder in hand, but Patricia waved him down with an irritated flick of her wrist, the gesture of someone swatting away an annoying insect. Marcus watched this exchange with growing disbelief. She was dismissing her own attorney on national television. Your Honor, I've been president for 6 years. I know our covenant inside and out. The document clearly states that all exterior paint colors must be approved neutral tones, and navy blue simply doesn't qualify as neutral by any reasonable standard. It's too bold, too attention-seeking, and frankly, it diminishes the cohesive aesthetic we've worked so hard to maintain. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled, her expression unreadable. Do you have the covenant with you today, Ms. Henderson? The actual document? Patricia laughed. Actually laughed, a sound so dismissive and condescending that Marcus saw the bailiff's eyebrows rise slightly. Your Honor, I don't need to bring the physical covenant. I've administered it for 6 years, overseen dozens of architectural reviews and handled numerous compliance issues. I know what it says. Besides, in HOA law, the President's interpretation of ambiguous language is given substantial deference by courts. That's established precedent. This is really quite straightforward. The courtroom went so quiet Marcus could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Judge Judy's expression hadn't changed, but something in her eyes shifted. A dangerous glint that Marcus recognized from 100 episodes watched with his grandmother. This was the moment before the storm. When Judge Judy went completely still. Excuse me? Judge Judy's voice was silk over steel. You're going to tell me about legal precedent? In my courtroom? Patricia, incredibly, devastatingly, fatally, didn't hear the warning. She plowed ahead with the oblivious confidence of someone who'd bullied people for so long. She'd forgotten what real authority looked like. Your Honor, I mean no disrespect, but HOA governance law is very specialized. I've handled dozens of these cases personally, and the pattern is always the same. The homeowner violates community standards, refuses to comply, and the court upholds the HOA's enforcement authority. We're here today essentially as a formality. I just need you to sign off on the judgment so I can proceed with placing the lien on Mr. Chen's property and recovering our legal costs. She smiled. Actually smiled like she was doing Judge Judy a favor by explaining the obvious. My attorney mentioned that your show pays the judgment amount, which is why we agreed to come here rather than pursue this in small claims court. It seemed like an efficient resolution for everyone involved. Marcus watched Judge Judy's knuckles whiten slightly as her grip tightened on her pen. The judge's voice, when it came, was so quiet that the boom operator actually adjusted his equipment to catch it. Ms. Henderson, let me make something absolutely crystal clear since you seem to be operating under some profound misunderstandings. This is not your courtroom. You don't tell me what's a formality. You don't tell me about legal precedent. You don't tell me how cases work. And you certainly don't waltz in here assuming this is some quick cash grab because you think my show is a piggy bank for frivolous lawsuits. Do I make myself understood? Patricia's smile faltered just slightly, but her ego wouldn't let her back down. She rolled her eyes, a tiny gesture barely perceptible, except the camera was rolling and the boom mic caught her muttered response perfectly. Here we go. The dramatic judge routine. The air pressure in the courtroom seemed to drop. Judge Judy's bailiff actually took a small step forward. Marcus's lawyer instincts, honed from watching 1,000 episodes, screamed one word in his head. Destruction. Patricia Henderson had just signed her own death warrant, and she didn't even know it yet. Judge Judy set down her pen with deliberate, controlled precision, the kind of calculated calm that preceded absolute annihilation, and Marcus knew from years of watching this show that Patricia Henderson had approximately 30 seconds before her entire world imploded. Mr. Chen, Judge Judy said, her voice suddenly warm, almost gentle, the dramatic tonal shift making Patricia's smirk finally begin to crack. Show me what you brought today. Marcus approached the bench with his folder, hands steadier now because this was the moment his grandmother had prepared him for. This was why he'd spent 3 sleepless nights organizing everything with color-coded tabs and chronological precision. And as he laid out the first document, he saw Judge Judy's eyes light up with something that looked almost like pride. Your Honor, this is the original Meadowbrook Estates HOA covenant, recorded with Orange County in 2008. Section 4.2b, page 14, lists approved exterior door colors. He opened to the tabbed page, his finger pointing to the relevant text. Navy blue is explicitly listed. Right here. Benjamin Moore Hale Navy, HC 154, the exact shade I used. Judge Judy pulled the document closer, reading carefully, then looked up at Patricia with an expression that could freeze lava. Ms. Henderson, you said navy blue isn't allowed. This covenant, your covenant, listed by name and paint code. Patricia's face flushed. That's an outdated version, Your Honor. We amended. When? The single word cracked like a whip. I'd have to check our records. You don't have the records. You don't have the covenant. You don't have anything except your word, which is currently worth less than nothing in my courtroom. Marcus continued, pulling out the next document with the quiet confidence of someone who'd brought a bazooka to a knife fight. Your Honor, this is my architectural approval request, submitted to the HOA 60 days before I painted, as required by the covenant. It includes paint samples, photographs, and the specific Benjamin Moore color code. And this, he produced a printed email, is the written approval from Susan Rodriguez, the Architectural Committee Chair, dated March 15th, confirming that my request complies with all covenant requirements. Judge Judy read the email aloud, her voice dripping with pointed emphasis. Dear Marcus, your navy blue door submission is approved. This color is explicitly permitted under Section 4.2b. Please proceed. Best regards, Susan Rodriguez, Architectural Committee Chair. She looked at Patricia. Did you override your own committee chair's written approval? Patricia's lawyer finally found his voice weak and defeated. Your Honor, if I may, Ms. Henderson acted in her capacity as president to... I'm asking her. Judge Judy's gaze never left Patricia's face. Did you override this approval? I expressed concerns about community standards after reviewing the final result, Patricia said, her voice tight, defensive. Marcus pulled out his phone, hand steady now, and the courtroom screen flickered to life with text messages that made Patricia's face go white. The first message showed her request. Marcus, as a young professional homeowner, you'd be perfect for my campaign donor list. $2,500 gets you platinum sponsor tier. 3 days after his polite decline, the violation notice appeared, and Judge Judy's expression transformed into something absolutely murderous. If you love stories of justice and standing up to bullies, please support our channel with a donation. Every dollar helps us share more tales that expose abuse of power and celebrate truth. Visit the link in our bio to contribute. Let's keep these stories of accountability alive. Judge Judy studied the text messages on the courtroom screen with the focused intensity of a prosecutor who'd just been handed a murder confession, and Patricia Henderson's supreme confidence was evaporating in real time, replaced by a creeping panic that showed in her darting eyes, and the way her fingers clutched at her designer purse like a life preserver. Ms. Henderson, Judge Judy began, her voice carrying the weight of someone about to destroy a life's work in under 5 minutes. You asked Mr. Chen for a $2,500 campaign donation on April 3rd. He declined politely on April 5th. You sent him an HOA violation notice on April 8th, 3 days. You want to tell me that's a coincidence? Patricia's voice rose, defensive and shrill. That's completely circumstantial. The timeline doesn't prove causation. I issued that violation because I genuinely believed his door color violated our standards. My campaign outreach and my HOA duties are entirely separate. Separate? Judge Judy's voice could have cut glass. You're suing him for $5,000, exactly twice what you asked him to donate. That's not separate. That's retaliation disguised as enforcement. Marcus watched Patricia's lawyer sink lower in his chair, and in that moment, Judge Judy's team placed a research folder on her bench, the kind of background work that turned routine cases into bloodbaths. Judge Judy flipped it open, and her expression went from angry to absolutely disgusted. Ms. Henderson, in the past 3 years, you've sued 12 homeowners in a community of 47 homes. That's over 25% of your neighborhood. Let's review these cases, shall we? She began reading, each case a damning indictment of Patricia's pattern of abuse. Mrs. Yamamoto, sued for planting pink roses instead of red roses, settled for $3,000. The Okafor family, sued for having 8 holiday lights when the covenant allows 10. They sold their home rather than fight you. Mr. Peterson, sued for a mailbox 2 inches too tall, paid $2,000. The Tran family, sued for a garden gnome, paid $500. Judge Judy looked up, her voice deadly quiet. Every single one of these homeowners had either declined to support your political campaigns or opposed you in HOA board meetings. Every single one. Patricia's face was red now, tears forming at the corners of her eyes, her voice shaking with rage and fear. That's defamation. You can't say that on television. I'll sue you for... You'll sue me? Judge Judy leaned forward and the temperature in the room plummeted. You came into my courtroom, lied about your covenant, harassed a young man honoring his dead grandmother's memory, and ran an extortion racket for 6 years. You're not suing anyone. You're about to pay and pay dearly. Patricia began to cry, mascara streaking down her cheeks, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. Not even close. Judge Judy closed the case file with a finality that sounded like a coffin lid slamming shut, and when she spoke, her voice carried the accumulated weight of 40 years dispensing justice to bullies exactly like Patricia Henderson. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Ms. Henderson, you have zero legal basis for this lawsuit. The covenant explicitly allows navy blue. The Architectural Committee approved it in writing. You're not enforcing HOA rules, you're running a protection racket, and it ends today. Patricia's sobs grew louder, but Judge Judy raised a hand for silence. Mr. Chen filed a counterclaim for $7,500 covering legal fees, lost wages, and emotional distress. Judgment for the plaintiff in that amount, and Ms. Henderson, let me be perfectly clear. This money comes from your personal bank account, not the HOA, not the show. This was your personal vendetta, your abuse of authority, your retaliation. You pay every penny. Patricia's face went white beneath the streaked makeup. Wait, the show doesn't pay? But you thought wrong. The show pays valid judgments. Your lawsuit was frivolous, retaliatory, and borderline criminal. You're paying out of pocket, and if you don't have $7,500 in cash, Mr. Chen will file this judgment with Orange County Superior Court and garnish your wages until every cent is recovered. Judge Judy wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper that the microphones barely caught. Furthermore, I'm forwarding this case file to the California Attorney General for investigation of HOA abuse under Civil Code Section 5850. I'm also recommending to your HOA board that you be removed immediately. Your pattern of retaliation is documented, recorded, and now nationally televised. You did this to yourself when you walked in here thinking you were smarter than everyone in the room. Case dismissed. Get out of my courtroom. If this story of justice and standing up to bullies moved you, please support our channel with a donation. Your support fuels more tales that expose abuse of power and celebrate truth. Click the link in our bio to help us keep sharing these moments of accountability. The episode aired 3 months later and became a cultural phenomenon within hours. The kind of viral explosion that transcends typical courtroom television and becomes a genuine social movement. Within 4 hours of broadcast, Nagan Hokaren was trending nationally with over 2 million tweets. And the clip of Patricia saying, "That's how these things work," became the internet's favorite meme for entitled arrogance meeting swift justice. YouTube compilations titled "Judge Judy Destroys HOA Karen in 47 Seconds" racked up 15 million views in the first week, with comment sections flooded with thousands of people sharing their own HOA horror stories and celebrating Patricia's spectacular downfall. Patricia's world collapsed with breathtaking speed. Within 24 hours of the episode airing, 38 of 47 Meadowbrook homeowners signed a petition demanding her immediate resignation. She refused initially, posting on Facebook that this will blow over. People have short memories. But she'd catastrophically underestimated how much her neighbors had suffered in silence, waiting for exactly this moment. By day 3, her campaign for county supervisor imploded as major donors withdrew with public statements about not associating with this behavior. Her campaign manager quit via text message. The local Republican Party asked her to suspend her campaign, effective immediately. By week 2, her employer, a prominent Orange County real estate firm, terminated her employment after clients canceled 14 listings, and online reviews tanked their business rating from 4.8 stars to 2.1 stars overnight. The HOA board voted 6-1 to remove her as president, with only her own vote in opposition, and Patricia was forced to sell her Meadowbrook home within 90 days. Unable to afford the mortgage without income, she moved to Arizona, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and a cautionary tale. 1 year later, Marcus Chen stood at a podium in the Meadowbrook Estates Community Center, now renamed the Wei Chen Memorial Community Hall in honor of his grandmother, facing a crowd of over 200 people, homeowners, state legislators, local reporters, and HOA reform advocates who'd traveled from across California to witness what had become a statewide movement for accountability. The banner behind him read, "First Annual Meadowbrook Justice Day," and children from the neighborhood had painted colorful door artwork that lined the walls. Each one a small act of defiance transformed into celebration. Marcus gripped the podium, his voice steady but emotional as he began to speak. "A year ago I was terrified. I was being sued for painting my door navy blue, a color my grandmother loved, a color explicitly allowed in our HOA covenant. I faced $5,000 in fines for honoring her memory. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I thought I'd lose everything." He paused, looking out at faces he now knew as friends and allies. "But my grandmother taught me 3 things watching Judge Judy every afternoon. Bring documentation, tell the truth, and stand up to bullies even when you're scared." She survived authoritarian rule in Taiwan to come to America, where she believed people had rights that couldn't be stolen by petty tyrants. When I stood in that courtroom, I fought for every homeowner who'd been harassed, every family forced to sell, every person too afraid to push back. Marcus unveiled a bronze plaque that would hang permanently outside the community center. Wei Chen Memorial Community Hall, in honor of Wei Chen, 1945-2024, who taught her grandson, "The truth wins if you bring the receipts," and in memory of all homeowners who stood up to abuse of power. The crowd erupted in applause, and Susan Rodriguez, the new HOA president, took the microphone to announce the reforms they'd implemented. The Marcus Chen fairness policy requiring 3 warnings before any fines, mandatory financial transparency, a ban on political solicitation from board members, and a recall process for anyone who abused their authority. But the impact had spread far beyond Meadowbrook. Marcus's case inspired California Assembly Bill 1847, the HOA Accountability Act, which established state oversight for HOA complaints and created penalties for retaliatory enforcement. The bill passed with bipartisan support, and Marcus testified at the hearing alongside a video message from Judge Judy herself, who called it long overdue protection for vulnerable homeowners. That evening, Marcus sat on his front porch looking at his navy blue door, still vibrant in the sunset light when his phone rang. "Mr. Chen? I'm Carolina Ramirez from Phoenix. I watched your Judge Judy episode. My HOA is fining me $10,000 for installing a wheelchair ramp for my disabled son. I saw your grandmother's Justice Fund website. Can you help?" Marcus smiled, looking at the framed photo of his grandmother beside him. "Tell me everything, Carolina, and bring documentation." He whispered to the photo, "We're helping people, Grandma, just like you taught me." The navy blue door gleamed behind him, no longer just paint on wood, but a symbol that one person's courage, armed with truth and receipts, could defeat any bully, no matter how powerful they believed themselves to be. If this story of courage, justice, and honoring family moved you, please consider donating to our channel. Your support helps us share more tales of ordinary people fighting extraordinary abuse and winning. Click the link in our bio to keep these stories of accountability and hope alive. Together we ensure that bullies face consequences and truth always has a voice. Thank you for watching, and remember, always bring documentation.